Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, as the explanatory note to the bill points out, the February 22nd earthquake is an incomparable natural disaster in New Zealand's history. And yes, it is above politics, but just because you say it is above politics does not mean it is above politics. It has to be acted, and it's the actions rather than the words that actually say there's no politics in this issue. Mr Speaker, we have never been faced with a disaster on this scale before. In response, we need to be able to make decisions. This legislation lays out the framework by which the government will assist Canterbury and Christchurch to move forward. And it is important to note the general policy statement that the bill is founded on the need for community participation in decision-making processes, while balancing this against the need for a timely and coordinated recovery process. That is the foundation of this bill, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, rebuilding Canterbury is going to be a long process. The Christchurch CBD has changed dramatically. Areas like Cashel Mall, High Street, Cathedral Square are just not the same. We have spoken in this House previously about the damage inflicted on roading, water, sewerage and homes throughout the region. The cordon in the CBD has gradually reduced in size, though some areas are still no-go zones. Almost all schools have reopened, albeit with disruption at some sites, and nearly all households now have power and running water. But of course, the substantive damage remains, and this is a big job. As was noted today, about $8.5 billion will be spent to fix Canterbury, and the job does require a centralised response. Lessons learned from overseas shows it is best to have a single entity in charge of the recovery efforts following major natural disasters. The Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority has been given this very important task. Of course, it is going to be working closely alongside the Christchurch, Selwyn and Waimakariri councils and other stakeholders throughout this process. Waimakariri District Council has shown that it is very adept at developing plans, in particular relating to kaiapoi, giving certainty to residents about the staged rebuilding process, and this is the sort of experience that can be drawn upon. It may well be, Mr Speaker, that Waimakariri will not need to bother the authority, nor require the exercise of any of the powers, but it has been included in case it does. This legislation, Mr Speaker, aims to facilitate prompt and efficient decision-making, both by the Minister in charge and the authority. I have heard the concerns that the powers go too far. The same concerns were aired over the previous Canterbury Response and Recovery Act that is now being repealed. The powers under that Act were used responsibly, as will be the powers this legislation provides. Even law academics such as Professor Andrew Geddes has admitted that the fears of abuse of powers under the previous legislation have, quote, remained unrealised, quote. There are significant checks and balances to ensure that the powers are used properly and unnecessary for the Canterbury recovery and for the Canterbury rebuild. Mr Speaker, it is important that the need for community participation is balanced against the need for timely and effective decision-making. Cantabrians do want a say in how their region is rebuilt. It is, after all, their region. Mr Speaker, this bill provides for the establishment of a community forum made up of local representatives that will provide advice to the Minister. There will also be a public consultation process in place. Cantabrians want to be heard, but they want to see action. It's a matter of striking the balance between effective coordination and consultation and the need for progress. Mr Speaker, we want the people of Canterbury to stay and rebuild their city and their province alongside the government over the next 5 years. Rebuilding Canterbury is one of the government's highest priorities, and we will continue to provide the resources to make this happen over the coming weeks, months and years. We are only at the start of a long journey, and the sooner the people of Canterbury can see a plan in place to rebuild their city and the progress flowing from that, the sooner they can re-establish their lives. Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.